All right, Mike, we're back with another 10 questions for an atheist. You ready to do this again?
I'm ready.
All right, before we get started, I want to remind everybody about our website, mikeandjtalks.com, and join us on our Discord if you want to get in on the conversation. Question number one. Well, actually, I guess it would be technically 11. Let's do this again. Number one, how do you know there is no God?
I don't. It's not a dichotomy. You don't either know there is a god or know there isn't one. Have you heard of the gumball analogy?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna lay it out as simply as I can. I bring a jar of gumballs out and I set it on the table, or let's say our producer does. The producer knows that neither one of us knows how many gumballs are in the jar, but it's like over 100 or over two. It's like a large number of gumballs, right? Would you agree that the number of gumballs in the jar is either even or odd?
Yeah, I'd agree it's one or the other.
Okay, so if he sets it on the table and I look at the jar without counting them and say the number is even, would you agree with me?
No, I would probably instantly disagree.
Okay, does that mean that you think the number is odd?
Yes.
Well,
If
there
I
we go.
disagree, odds are one of us is going to be right. I'd rather one of us be right than both of us be wrong.
What would an honest answer be? You don't know if it's either even or odd.
Yeah, that would be an honest answer. But
Well, that's the stance that I take. But it's the existence of God. Either, would you agree that either a God exists or a God doesn't exist? It's
I
one
would
or the
agree.
other.
Okay, I would agree that a God does exist.
Okay. Well, I don't think that a God does exist, but that doesn't mean that I think a God doesn't exist. Like, I'm just unconvinced of God's existence, but I'm equally unconvinced of God's non existence. I rest comfortably in my uncertainty, and I
Okay.
hold this uncertainty without discomfort or pain.
Question number two, Mike. Where did everything come from? In other words, why is there anything here? Why are we here? What started it all? How does something come from nothing?
Well, I don't think that something can come from nothing, but that doesn't mean that it can't. But as far as where everything came from, I'm not entirely sure. What we have right now is the current presentation of the universe. Personally, I don't think there was ever a time where nothing existed, so I don't think there's really anything that's left to explain. We can track the Big Bang back to its earliest points, but beyond that, our laws of physics just begin to break down.
Okay. So, question number three. Why are there humans? I mean, why are we here? Are we really a product of chance?
Well, I don't think that anything is the product of chance. I think that the laws of physics and the laws of the universe, the way the universe behaves, everything is very deterministic. Especially natural selection, bringing about humans through evolution, is a very deterministic process. There's not really any chance involved in that.
Okay, second part to this. What makes us special? Or, I mean, are we really, we no different than animals?
Well, humans are by definition animals.
You're an animal.
If you are multicellular with organs and tissue, you are by definition an animal.
What's the difference between a human and an animal?
None. Any classification you would have for an animal, humans meet every single criteria. We're eukaryotic. All of the cells in our body are eukaryotic. Uh, Discounting our genetic link with every living thing on Earth, just by definition, just because of the way that we are. Like, we're too big to be bacteria, and we're too mobile to be plants. We're definitely not fungi, so, I mean, animals is kind of the only clade that's left.
Well, I'm a fun guy.
You are, Jay. A very fun guy. I'll go a step farther and say that you're not just an animal, you're a primate. And
But
not just a primate, but you're also an ape.
so, kind of getting away from that question a little bit, why are we classified as humans and not animals?
Well, humans are a subset of animals.
I guess that makes sense. Question number five. What is a person?
I think a person is a uh, an identity framework that we put on something. Uh, Identity is kind of hard to name. Is kind of hard to nail down, but basically, this arrangement of cells that we call Mike is I would consider to be a person. The arrangement of matter that constitutes you, we would call that Jay. But personhood is just an identity label that we put on things.
Okay. Question number 6 now. I want to remind our viewers out there, these are not my questions. They were given to me. Number 6, why was Hitler wrong? And let me just clarify this before you answer. I believe Hitler was wrong. I don't want anybody thinking that I'm asking this question trying to debunk anything. Hitler was an asshole and he was wrong, but I want to hear your stance.
Well, I'd say that Hitler did things I would consider to be immoral. Like Hitler does things that went against my conscience, like sanctioning the execution of unsuitable people, shall we say. Identify pretty easily where it's harming someone's well-being. So I mean, it feels kind of obvious, but yeah, I hope that Christians don't think that just because we don't have the same moral framework in their eyes, though I think that Christians and atheists generally have the same opinion, they just don't recognize it. That doesn't mean that we therefore think that everything is permissible.
Right. Question number 7. Why are you scared of death?
I'm not.
You're not?
Not at all. I came to
You
terms with my mortality, and I feel like that kind of makes me appreciate my life even more. Like the atoms in my body recognize that they are atoms, courtesy of being me. Like I am the current presentation of the universe that just so happens to be aware of itself. I actually feel very privileged to even be alive.
Do you think death is the end?
It's going to be the end of my consciousness, but I'd probably just return to a state similar to the one before I was born. Like this arrangement will be gone, but I won't really care.
Okay.
I care now, but after I'm dead and gone, I'm not going to have the capacity to care or hurt anymore, so I'm not really bothered by it.
Question number 8. Why do people need to believe in God?
I feel like this might be a little bit controversial, but I think that even though I'm an atheist, I think religion kind of plays a good role in society. Like maybe not once society is developed, but it's just kind of a at a glance frame of reference, because doing what someone tells you to do is a lot easier than figuring out why you should do it. Like when you're a child and you obey your parents don't have to give you an explanation for everything that they're telling you to do. It's just you do what they tell you to do because they generally know what they're doing. That's why when people start to become adults, they start to recognize that not everything their parents told them is the correct thing to do, but on the whole, because they're coming from a position of authority, they generally know better than their children. I think religion can kind of serve the same kind of role, where it's just like a quick reference for just a moral framework. But as you develop and you grow, I think you need to come to those kinds of answers by yourself.
Good answer. Question number 9, Mike. What is the Bible?
The Bible is a collection of letters and like a old scripture, and it's really mostly just a collection of writings, mostly letters. I've heard one Christian put it: the Bible wasn't written for us, but or it wasn't written to us, but it was written for us. It's like I see it as a collection of writings that had a very convoluted history. Like the Book of Revelation, for example, was only included in the Bible mostly because one pope wanted it in there. Like there's a lot of history that goes in the Bible. There was a lot of books that weren't considered to be canon, and it's just had a very complex and I think a kind of a fascinating history. But at the end of the day, it's what I think to be man's interpretation of uh, the idea of God that they had in their minds, like to the best of their ability, based on what they knew.
And final question, number 10. Mike, who is Jesus? What makes him different?
Well, I know not every atheist would agree with this, but I think that Jesus was most likely a real person. I know there's even some Christian historians who or some theist historians that might not think that Jesus was real. I think based on what I've heard, he was likely to be real, but I think that he was most likely an apocalypticist or a doomsday kind of preacher at his time. He had quite a bit of a cult following behind him, and uh, I think that he was probably put to death. But I think the story kind of picked up a little bit of mythical energy after the fact. Like the Gospels, for example, weren't written directly by eyewitnesses. They were written by people listening to supposed eyewitnesses. So at best, it's hearsay of hearsay. And I think that maybe using like the telephone game, maybe these stories got embellished over time, sometimes to mythical proportions.